Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm Associate Professor Adam Hawkey, and I decided I wanted to do a little bit more during the current lockdown. So I came up with a little idea of Hawkey Talks, where I'd reach out to a range of my contacts from professional sport, academia, and health to discuss ways to maintain our health and well-being during and hopefully beyond this difficult time. And I'm really delighted that my first guest, and therefore setting the standard for everyone who follows, which is probably a little bit unfair considering he's now a professional keynote speaker, is former Premier League and international footballer Paul McVeigh. Thanks, Paul, for joining me.
Pleasure, Adam. Thanks for having us. I'm hoping I do set some sort of standard, but let's judge that at the end, shall we?
So, Paul, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure there aren't many of them, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and predominantly start with your as a professional footballer?
Yep. So came across from Belfast, Ireland when I was 16 in 1994, and was very fortunate to join an amazing club at Tottenham Hotspur, and even probably more fortunate to make my Premier League debut up front with Teddy Sheringham in 1997, and had a couple of games playing in the first team, but kind of probably not been able to sustain that level of Premier League standards. Spurs moved me on in 2000 and joined Norwich City for the next kind of 7 years, which is probably the most successful period of my professional footballing days, and really fortunate to play in really successful team with some fantastic players. And yeah, did that for a number of years. Finally had a couple of years at Luton Town, another year back at Norwich, and luckily another league title for me, and decided to stop playing when I was 32 and move into this whole world of kind of mental performance and psychology.
Brilliant. Can you maybe touch on some of the skills that you learned in the professional game, and perhaps maybe mention have been applied in your following years, and also right through to your current now?
Yeah, so I think that one of the most important things that I really learned from, and I'm not sure necessarily was from football, but as a 17-year-old, I was given a book actually just before my 18th birthday, and it was all around basically mental performance. A lot of it was to do with goal setting, how to kind of try and create the life you want, and how your mindset is going to have a huge impact on that. And so that was probably one of the most influential things that I did whenever I was a really young kid. And I think that had such a big impact on me that through the next kind of 16 years of professional football, I was always looking for, what makes the difference between why do people perform at this level and why can other people go up here? Why is it that some of the players I played with who technically were, excellent, didn't go on to have the careers that probably their talent suggested? And so that fascination with performance really helped me for my career. And obviously, if you don't know me, I'm quite a small in stature, only being 5'6", but not, hopefully that didn't hold me back, because it really allowed me to try and maximize my other attributes. And the thing that I worked on the most was my psychology. And all I was trying to do constantly on the football pitch was outsmart people, just trying to do something that would give me an upper hand in the battle every time that we played against someone. And so coming out of football nearly 10 years ago now was just another great challenge for me to be able to go, okay, what do I need to do now? How do I need to think about this next transition, and what can I do? And for me, it was always about trying to find a gap in the market, a niche, and doing something differently that the majority of people aren't doing.
Great. And how do you think you coped leaving the kind of professional game? Because presumably this consumed your life for a significant period of time. It was your main career. And how do you think some of that required adaptation on your part when you left the game?
Well, I think it demanded huge adaptation, because when you go from a professional footballing career. And without kind of getting too technical, I kind of had come to the realization that it's an extrinsic event that's happening to me. You know, people are offering me contracts. I can't go to Man United and say, I'm going to sign for you. They have to come to me and offer it to me, or same with Norwich or Spurs or whoever. So the whole point is that realizing that effectively it's an extrinsic event, it's out of my control. I don't have the ability to decide. So I can put myself in the best possible position so that when the opportunity comes, I can take it. But ultimately, it's still extrinsic, which probably helped me work on my identity, that I wasn't just a professional footballer. And having that identity probably quite early on in my career, maybe 24, 25, 26, allowed me to start adding other aspects of my life that then meant when I came out of professional football, which inevitably that was going to happen at some stage, that let's say I had 10 things that I thought of myself as my identity, and one of them is a professional footballer. And suddenly that professional football contract's taken away. I still have all of these things that I believe I am as a person. And so the transition was, I wouldn't say seamless, but it was probably less turbulent than a lot of players who come out of professional football and struggle. But I suppose it's not just professional football. It's, you know, people coming out of the military, people who have worked in, I don't know, banking for 25 years and trying to do something different. It's just when you're surrounded in this culture, it can be all absorbing, as you say. And now it was a point where I didn't have any of that around me, and it was completely down to me whether I sink or swim.
And I'm sure that can be related to the current situation we're going through now. Big upheaval of change, lots of things happening. Do you think there are any ways that you and potentially we can learn from your experience of adaptation in this kind of current crisis?
I suppose there's a couple of ways that maybe I've dealt with it. You know, I think I'm quite good at dealing with change. So that's probably one of the first things. Some people might not have had huge changes in their life, where, you know, I feel like I'm constantly going through changes, and if that's not from the house you're living in, to the city you're living in, to the club you're playing for, to the dressing room you're walking into, to coming out of a career, to, you know, changing career again and different paths. So all of these changes, it's probably my attitude to change that's allowing me to adapt to all these different changes I've gone through in my life. Whereas even just the fact that some people fear change, you know, people will almost violently oppose it, depending on, you know, what their beliefs are. And so the fact that I quite like change, I embrace it and realize it's inevitable. It's another thing that's going to happen. You know, you're different today than what you were yesterday. You're going to be different tomorrow than what you are today. So it's always around us and always going to happen. So why fight it? But so one of the things for me is, okay, this is the situations, this is the parameters. Now what can I do? And at that point, I say, okay, well, I can't control all of this stuff outside of me. Probably if I was to say the only thing that we actually ever have any control over is us. And when I mean us, I mean this. I mean our psychology to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to think about situations. And I'll just give you a quick, really just sort of point back to one of the books that I read when I came out of football was by a guy called Viktor Frankl, and it was called Man's Search for Meaning. And effectively, he was a psychologist in the prisoner war camps in Auschwitz. And the whole book, the premise of the book is that the people in these camps were getting stripped of everything, you know, from their dignity to their clothes to their food, everything. And yet, even within that absolutely horrendous situation, being a psychologist in this camp, Viktor Frankl was observing people treating different people how other people might treat them. So, for instance, they were all getting tiny, tiny little morsels of food, and yet some people were getting that food and giving it to someone else, and other people were getting the food and keeping it for themselves, and other people were helping other people, and some other people were just doing all for themselves. So what he was observing was that actually, even in the most horrendous circumstances, we as humans have this ability to choose how we respond to these circumstances. And I suppose having that lesson that I've learned from that book means that this lockdown that we're currently going through, I can decide how I'm going to respond to it. And the way that I'm responding is I'm working on all the things that I think are going to benefit me and my business whenever we come out of this lockdown.
Sure. And just following on a little bit from that, in terms of ways of getting through this, I'm just wondering, in your opinion, how important kind of our support networks and teamwork is here. So obviously, I'm part of a large team at Southern University. You've been a member of a number of different teams. And I've been thinking this week, because I know you've been keeping in touch with another Norwich City legend, Russell Martin, who is a fellow Brightonian of mine, and obviously now manager of MK Dons. I'm just thinking how important it must be to be part of a team and keep all your team motivated during this time, and perhaps how we go about doing this.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're probably quite fortunate in 2020 to be able to have that network through technology. If you're going through the lockdown and you have people in your house, then effectively that's your team now. If you're, like my brother he's living in his house and he's by himself, and he's gone through this lockdown by himself, then that's quite tough. But there's always the phone, FaceTime, house parties, WhatsApp, Zoom. We're doing this on. There's so many ways to keep in touch that it's essential. Because as we all know, humans, we need other people, and that's just not in a physical format. That's in a mental, emotional way as well. So keeping in touch with people is probably the most important thing, I would say. Alongside, maybe probably equally as important for me, is the exercise. So one of the things that I've done is, because I do so much traveling for all my speaking, whenever I'm traveling around the world, I don't always feel like I can fit in my training. And yet, because I'm now at home every single day, I'm training 6 days a week. But that's just me. Not everybody will want to do that or could do that. But for me, it's a great opportunity to get back in shape, to get into really kind of a healthy condition, so that when this lockdown is lifted, inevitably when it is, that I feel like I'm in the best possible shape to go and attack whatever way the world economy is going to be in a few months' time, or however long it is.
Sure. And that's part, obviously, of your mindset. And you mentioned earlier, and quick confession, obviously we spoke a little bit last week prior to this meeting. We spoke about your qualification in psychology, and and our mutual friend of Professor Craig Mahoney, and how he'd worked with you before. How much says a little bit about your kind of qualification, if you like, post football in kind of psychology, and how that's helped you generally, but maybe also touch on how that's kind of helping you deal with the current situation a little bit.
Well, it is, I think, really interesting, because I would never, out of those 10 things that I have an identity of myself as, and none of those things would be as an academic. I would never say that I'm an academic, because leaving school at 16, and having my professional football career and deciding to do my sports science degree whenever I was 28, and then having another 10-year break, and then going back and doing my master's in sports psychology. And so I always felt like I struggled going through all of those different aspects of academia. And I'm not going to lie, even though just because you're on the line and this is going out probably to an academic base and demographic, it was really tough, really hard. One of the hardest challenges I've had probably in my life, of getting through those 2 years of my MSc, because I was also working at Crystal Palace, and because obviously you see the badge now, it's a couple of years ago, but been training in the top today. And even though I can't call myself a sports psychologist, effectively they brought in me and used my services as a sports psychologist. So I was working with players on their sports psychology, but obviously the world of sports psychology gets a little bit precious about this. So you can't call yourself a sports psychologist until you've got all the different accreditation. But really it was still quite broad for me to actually help, because I was working with just elite athletes, and out of the entire 2-year course, there was only like a tiny little bit that was completely geared towards elite athletes. So loads of it that I didn't think was relevant for me. Obviously, when I was going through it, I thought that. Looking back now, after 3 years of kind of coming out of this, I now feel that actually it was just a tremendous base of knowledge. And probably one of the best things that I've kind of learned from it or taken from it is all around critical analysis and critical thinking. You know, and obviously coming through the years that's not something that would have been, you know, on my radar or I would have been aware of. But the fact that you now have that understanding, the fact that this whole cause and effect and what contributes and what impacts it, and, you know, the reasons why things happen is now hugely beneficial for me whenever I'm going and doing my keynotes all over the place. And I think even just the fact that you have that qualification, you know, if we're going to talk about like why someone might bring me in to deliver a keynote to their organization or their business, you know, my little USP is the only kind of guy on the planet that's ever played in the Premier League and got a master's in sports psychology. So for me, that's a brilliant USP to have. Now, whether that means anything to anyone else is irrelevant, but just have to have something to be able to give yourself some sort of, I don't know, reason why they're going to bring you in rather than someone else.
Sure, great. And obviously that's helping you now, but I'm just thinking, you know, for lots of people out there, you know, how you mentioned you're training kind of 6 times a week, which is fantastic from a, you know, physical activity and health promotion perspective. How else are you keeping yourself busy? I know you've been reading a lot. You mentioned a book earlier. Is that one of the main ways that you're keeping busy, or are there other things that you're doing as well?
So I'm still working. Effectively, I'm working, as you can see now. Got like my lunch coming in because I'm always working in front of my laptop. Thank you. And this is the thing, that whenever you have, you know, I still have a business to try and carry on with. So as much as I might not be delivering sessions, I still need to be working on my relationships, spreading my network. And I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, obviously right in the middle of this shutdown, I was supposed to be in Singapore delivering a session for Microsoft. And I am absolutely devastated that that's not happened, because that, you know, it's taken me 10 years to build up to this point of getting to say that Microsoft would like to bring me in, and then they closed their borders, and then I went into a room and cried for a week because they get that opportunity. But it just means that I still need to keep on those relationships and the people I have worked, people I was working with before. So I'm still working, and just because I'm not actually out at events and delivering keynotes, I'm still working on all of the other things that will bring in business for me. But in terms of the actual specific activities, reading loads more. So that's a really, really good thing for me, because, you know, I've love reading, and again, as we all have these lives, it's really just something that I've picked up. Another thing is learning language. So obviously, being from Ireland, I actually studied Irish at school, loved Irish, didn't do anything with it when I left school at 16, and then I've just been on Duolingo doing like 30 to 45 minutes a day of learning language, as well as my training and working. And pretty much my days are so full every single day. And this is an interesting thing, Adam. This is hopefully a really good way for people to reconsider their lives and take stock of their lives. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, see, once this lockdown's finished and lifted and everyone's kind of going back to normal, I'm going to go back and I'm going to be doing exactly what I did before the lockdown. And the reason why I'm saying that is because for so long, and I mean like 25 years since I read that first book, and I was really blew my mind in terms of around mindset when I was 17. For 25 years, I've been setting goals for myself of what I want to be doing and how I want to be doing and living my life. And the fact that I'm now 42, 10 years post-football, now as a global keynote speaker and got my master's and all the rest of it, it doesn't happen by accident, because 10 years ago, I decided that's what I wanted. And now, because I'm doing this, it's because I've put so much planning, work, effort, making decisions that are going to allow me to have this life prior to the lockdown. So when the lockdown finishes, I'm going to carry on doing it because I'm absolutely passionate and I love my life. And whether it's a sad thing or whether it's just an observation, is that so few people put in any time of thought, energy in deciding how they want their life to look like. And this is an interesting, just as a throw in simple question to anyone who might be listening, is, could you give me your definition of success? So if someone's listening to this, could they give me their definition of success? And if I'm standing up in front of an audience or delivering a keynote and I ask that question, suddenly the room generally goes silent, is the first thing, because most people are like, never really kind of thought about it. because most people are just on the treadmill, getting up, going to work, coming back, getting up, going to work, coming back, just on the treadmill. I'm like, so what's your definition of success? And most people generally have no idea what they're working towards. They're just working. And I understand that, because I appreciate for some people just getting through the day, like getting through lockdown for some people will be an achievement. And I appreciate that, because everyone's at different stages in their life. But if you haven't put any thought into what success looks like for you, firstly, how you're ever going to achieve it? And secondly, at what stage are you going to get to in your life before you decide what you're actually working towards? And occasionally when you ask that question, someone at the back of the room might go, oh, Paul, it's achieving your goals. That's what success is. Success is achieving your goals. And you're going, okay, so what goals do you have? And they're like, oh, I'm not really sure. And all it is understanding and the clarity of what you want in your life, and then working towards it.
Right. So you are the
it's easy to say, isn't it?
Great to say, exactly. Philosophical footballer. And that might be a great time under my stammer there to talk about a little bit about your book. Obviously, The Stupid Footballer is Dead.
He is dead.
You haven't got a copy, have you, sitting right there that you can hold up in front of the screen?
No.
There you
Unfortunately go. Not. Unfortunately. Don't worry, but it is available in on my website and in all good bookstores, and probably some bad ones too. Go on. So what's the question?
So just tell us a little bit about what that the book is all about, because obviously, you know, The Stupid Footballer is Dead. You know, immediately stirs up some emotion in terms of, you know, maybe there's a few footballers out there thinking, does he mean me? So, you know,
might have been a few that I played with.
Obviously, there's going to be a deeper aspect to that. So just quickly sum up kind of what that book is about, and, you know, here's your plug, here's your sales pitch.
Yeah. So basically, get it on paulmcveigh.co.uk. No, sorry. It was to do with the sweeping generalizations that I used to hear all the time, that footballers were stupid. You see it in the press, you see it on the TV, you hear people talking about it. I just was really kind of, in complete disagreement. I did not think that all footballers were stupid. In fact, most footballers that I came across, even if they weren't academically the smartest guy in the room, they were unbelievably astute, very, very switched on. If you walk in and stand in front of 25 footballers, let me tell you, see if you can try and get one over on them, then you're doing really well, because they are not stupid in any way. So I didn't never like that assertion that that's what all footballers were. I don't think I'm stupid, and, you know, so why do we all getting brushed with the same, or we're getting tarred with the same brush here? So for me, it was to sort of try and come out with the fact that this is another way to view footballers. And I know it's a huge industry, but I just wanted to give another way for people to look at. So effectively, there's 3 pillars in the book, and it's to do with what creates elite performance, what allows you to get to that level. And the first one I thought was talent. I actually thought it was natural talent, but, you know, over the last 10 years, done a lot of reading, researching, and writing dissertations and all the rest of it. And actually, I think it's talent that's been developed at a professional level. It's not natural talent, in my opinion. Then the second pillar, I would say, was physicality. And you're either my size, little 4 foot nothing, or you're, you know, my old teammate, Crouchy, 6'7". So, you know, physicality is going to have a huge impact. And those 2 are really important. But when I go back to my Spurs days and all the players I've played with over the years, just because they have talent and just because they are great athletes does not mean that they're going to be very, very good professional footballers. Because actually the greatest difference that I've seen in elite performers is the third pillar, and that's mental performance, or their psychology, or their mindset, or don't really care what you call it. It's that area. And for me, I made a decision. It's not that I learned the lesson. I just made a decision that actually that is the only thing that I ever need to work on from this point forward. Because if I get my psychology and mindset in a really healthy, constructive place, every single other aspect of my life, I'm not talking about my physicality, not necessarily talking about my talent, but if I get my mindset and psychology, mental performance in the right, healthy, constructive place, all the areas of my life fall into place, because it dictates everything. And when I go back to saying, what is your version of success? Most people don't even give it a thought, because most people aren't using this to their potential.
Great. all the psychologists I know are going to love me now for doing this, and all the biomechanists and physiologists are going to hate me. So
the thing is, all of those guys, the S&C guys with biomechanics and all the rest of it, the problem is that you can be the best in the world in that, but if this isn't right, well, there's no point in having it, because you can be the best physical specimen, but if the two of us are going into the gym and I have a psychology that I'm going to go in and I can't be bothered with today's training because I didn't sleep very well and I didn't really have the right food and I'm a bit tired, and that's my psychology going into that gym session, and this person goes into the gym session with like, I'm going to ruin this, I'm going to make myself sick, I'm going to absolutely blast this. So it doesn't really matter what kind of athlete walks in, it's the psychology that with the compound effect is going to dictate where people's performance ends up.
Right. We've been having a little bit of an exchange, not you and me, but there's been some exchanges on Twitter in terms of three practical things, or 3 things, positive messages through this lockdown. So let's try and finish on your 3 kind of top tips, if you like, for kind of mental and physical well-being during the next, the next month or however long we've got to last this through.
Okay. The first one is set yourself a physical goal. Whatever that physical goal is for you. For me, it was going from training 2 or 3 times a week. My new goal is 6 times a week. So it's a massive stretch, but I'm pushing myself and moving towards it. So set yourself a physical goal. Set yourself a goal to keep in contact with, whether it's friends or family. So from a personal point of view, I set myself a little target of speaking to 3 clients a day and speaking to 1 friend and 1 family member. So out of the 5 people that I proactively speak to each day, that's what I'm trying to do. And that means making phone calls because of the house that I'm in that I don't see them. And then the last one is a challenge for yourself. Could you learn a skill? I'm doing Irish, don't have to do Irish. I always had my guitar with me, don't have my guitar. Could you learn a wee bit of a skill in that? Because those little sort of, minute bits of progress all helps with our self-esteem, with our psychology, with our self-worth, and gives us the focus and a little bit of purpose of getting out of bed in the morning.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Listen, Paul, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I hope your advice will help a lot of people out there. I'm certain it will help me out there. That a thank you doesn't seem enough. What I would like to just quickly finish on, as you know, we've been discussing earlier in the week, I come from a Norwich City family. My dad's a season ticket holder at Carrow Road. Hopefully you're going to be able to speak to him later on, so give him a bit of a surprise. So in true Norwich City style, hopefully you'll be able to hear this. We'll go out to what I think is possibly the greatest, if not one of the greatest, chants from the terraces at Carrow Road.
Yeah, so can you see how that's not necessarily the most complimentary song in the world? It might be great for the fans singing because it's really catchy tune, but whenever you keep telling me about I'm basically 4 foot nothing, I'm like, I don't really need to keep hearing it. I know that.
But it does start off with "We love you, Paul McVeigh." Yeah, so anything after that, you can't really go wrong, can you?
And now they don't even say the entire line. Now it's just an acronym. Anyway, brilliant. Cheers, Adam.
Paul, thanks. We'll catch up soon. Okay.
Pleasure.
Cheers, mate. Take care. Bye-bye.